It's a remarkable privilege to be here with you this weekend, and I do appreciate that very much indeed. We're thinking about God encounters. But what about when he's not there? When you can't encounter him because he's not answering. That's what we're going to think about in these two early morning sessions. I want to read some verses from Psalm 74 to start this off. It's a long psalm, so we'll read only a part of it. It's called a Maskil of Asaph. And reading from verse 1, what it says is this: Why have you rejected us forever, O God? Why does your anger smoulder against the sheep of your pasture? Remember the people you purchased of old, the tribe you redeemed as your inheritance, Mount Zion where you dwelt. Pick your way through these everlasting ruins, all this destruction the enemy has brought on your sanctuary. Your foes roared in the place where you met with us. They set up their standards as signs. And verse 9 says, we are given no miraculous signs. No prophets are left. And none of us knows how long this will be. How long will the enemy mock you, O God? Will the foe revile your name forever? Why do you hold back your hand, your right hand? Take it from the folds of your garment and destroy them. And the whole psalm ends with, rise up, O God, and defend your cause. Remember how fools mock you all day long. Do not ignore the clamour of your adversaries, the uproar of your enemies, which rises continually. It's terrible when the person you're looking for just isn't there. I remember when I went for my interview at university to see whether I could get in. I was on the steps outside this distinguished lecturer's office well before the time, so I was prepared. Unfortunately, I could see into his room from the steps where I was standing. And I could see there was nobody in there. There was some music playing, there were some soft lights on, but there was nobody in the room at all. And as time went by and the time for the interview went past, I thought, what do I do now? Do I stay here? Do I go away? What do I do? And I think it was 15, 16 minutes late, as is the manner of dons in the university. And he came bounding upstairs, and I can't even remember the reason he gave. All I can remember is the tidal wave of relief. Oh, thank goodness he's here. And the sense of panic that I'd felt for quite a while at going for the most important interview of my life so far and finding he wasn't there. It can be like that, can't it, with God, when he's just not around. And that's what this psalm is about. It's a maskil psalm. We don't quite know what maskil means, but it seems to be something to do with instruction. And so this psalm is written to tell us, hey, this is how it feels when you're in this kind of situation. And I guess the heart of the psalm is the verse that says, we are given no miraculous signs, no prophets are left, and none of us knows how long this will be. Sometimes God can seem a long way away. What's the cause? Well, as with my interview, where I can't really remember why he was late, that's almost irrelevant. It's a sense of panic, isn't it? This is a psalm about the devastation of God's city, and that clearly didn't happen unless God's people had done something terribly, terribly wrong. But you know, that's not mentioned at all in the psalm. The cause for the whole thing isn't important. The focus is just, what do we do when God isn't there? And Spurgeon, looking at this psalm many years ago, says it is the cry of a smitten child, wondering why, and grieving that his father's face is so turned away from him in displeasure. Sometimes we just don't know why, do we? And God can sometimes leave us in that situation for a while in his grace so that we learn important lessons from him. I have two grandchildren who are twins who just moved quite close to us. And they will do things that are wrong. And the trouble with twins is you get it doubled. Because when one does something evil, the other one thinks, oh, that's a good idea, I'll do the same. And you end up with sometimes just having to discipline. No, bad, don't do that, Jess. And then she bursts into tears and she's bewildered for 5 minutes. And you let her cry. Why? Because she needs to meditate on the fact that it isn't good just to smack your twin over the head and go off with the toy that she was playing with. And she's to learn these lessons. And so sometimes she needs to be left in that situation until it got into her head that you cannot strangle your sister and get away with it. And sometimes God has to do that with us. Jesus was doing that, wasn't he? He sometimes just delayed action. Look at the disciples in the boat, struggling against the winds and the storms on Galilee. Master, don't you care that we perish? And Jesus wakes up and says, peace be still. Why did he do that before? Well, because otherwise he'd never be asking a question, what kind of man is this? And sometimes God's timing is not our timing. So what do we do if we're not encountering God? Well, I think this psalm suggests two things, and you can look through it yourself later on if you want. The first thing is, be patient. God is teaching us to wait on him. One American preacher said, there is nothing we can do to get God to pay us more attention. And that's absolutely right, isn't it? We have to wait until the moment is right and trust that he knows better what it's supposed to be. We were reminded last night that drawing near to God starts with his initiative, not ours. We can't manipulate him. We can't twist his arm. But there is one thing we can do, and the psalm does this repeatedly. We can ask him to remember. 3 times that word's used throughout the psalm. 28 times it's used throughout Scripture. Remember, O God. Remember, O God. Now, that's strange in a way, isn't it? Because God doesn't forget. You know, he who watches over Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. He's always on the case. His eye is on the sparrow. So why do we have to ask him to remember? Well, it's not that he forgets. It's that sometimes he doesn't seem to be remembering. It looks from our perspective as if he's forgotten. He hasn't really, but it looks that way. Because when God remembers, says the American preacher Bell, it means he is about to focus his action on the object of his remembrance. He hasn't forgotten us. It's just he's not doing anything about us right now. And so when we say to God, remember, we mean focus your attention on us. Do what needs to be done in our situation. We're conscious that it depends on your power, on your moment, on your time. But please, Lord, when the time is right, move. And it's perfectly scriptural to ask that question. Sometimes in our church, I have something I will want to be announced. And I'll go to the service leader and say, now look, it's very important before the end of the service that people get this announcement. And you say, yeah, sure. I'll slot it in somewhere, no problem. And has he really got this? It really is important. And I'm sitting there through the service on tender thinking, is he going to remember? Is he going to remember? And he finally said, okay, now it's time for our final hymn. And no, he's forgotten. What do I do? Do I stand up and say something? Do I make signals? What do I do? And they said, but before we do that, John has something to... You remembered. And of course he hasn't forgotten. He remembered all the way through. He was just going to slot it in a different place from what I was expecting. And that's the case with God remembering, isn't it? He's not forgotten you. It sometimes seems that way when we don't have the God encounter we're expecting. But he's there. He's on the case. And when the time is right, he will remember. He'll come through for us. He's about to focus his action on the object of his remembrance. Philip Doddridge says, we need to wait with patience. Can you, he says, even when your natural spirits are weak and low, and you're not in any frame of mind for the ardours and ecstasies of devotion, nevertheless, find a pleasing rest, a calm repose of heart, in the thought that God is near you, that he sees the secret feelings of your soul, while you are, as it were, labouring up the hill, and casting a longing eye towards him, though you cannot say you enjoy any tangible communications with him. He may not seem to be there, but he is. When the encounter is not at the time we expect, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. O thou from whom all goodness flows,